It says preparing to live stream, so it should start any time now. Yep. Okay. Let me just move this to.
Can you tell if anybody's watching?
It's supposed to show me how many people are watching, but right now it shows 0 of 200. So,
But they can't
but
talk? Is that how that works?
No, I turned off the comments, and so on YouTube, all you're doing is viewing. Says 2 started streaming less than a minute ago, so they can watch, but there's no written comments, and I'm not sure how we could actually, well, actually they should just join the Zoom to talk. So okay, I'm going to resume the recording, John, if you're ready.
Okay.
Is Francis here now? Yeah, Francis, can you hear us okay?
I can hear. Good afternoon.
Okay, I'm going to start the recording now. Okay, John, go at it.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the November Guam Board of Accountancy board meeting. It's the November board meeting. Call the meeting to order. Present are board members Taling Taitano, Jenny Chu, Francis Baba. Also is Sean Phillips is here, and myself, and Executive Director Dave Sanford. And I guess just to confirm, Dave, I think the meeting has been properly
correct.
Noted. And you've put in more detailed, I guess, agenda items on the advertisement. So that's good. Thanks. So first item is the approval of the minutes. And I think we've all received copies of the minutes. So if there are no objections, can I hear a motion to approve the last?
Move to approve, subject to correction.
Second.
Second by Francis. Thank you, Francis. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the second item. Dave, do you want to go over the
the GIF update?
Yes.
Right. Okay. As I said in my email, it's up and down every day almost, but as of November 14th, we had a good value of 4.22 million. And that's up from like 3.9 million 6 weeks ago and 4.1 million a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So it just keeps going, gyrating. We did pay, or they withdrew another 10,500 in investment management fees for the fourth quarter. And that brings us to about 40,000 in total fees for the year. This was the year to date as of the end of October. I think, was it 31st? 4.1 million, which showed us that essentially we'd had an $892,000 loss for the year, 18% year to date loss. Fortunately, most of that's unrealized. So, as the market returns to more normal of what it was, then, our value will just increase. So, so there's the statements. This pack has the September statement in it, since we didn't have a meeting in October to cover September. He paid is the 10,520 for the fourth quarter, so it's 44.5, or almost 45,000 for the year. In terms of investment fees, which is not bad considering, I guess. So there's no questions on the fund. Basically, charge I'm not sure why they split it into two, but there's a 9,000 and a 900 fourth quarter fee for consulting, which essentially is the investment management fee. And it does show on a year-to-date basis that the actual realized gains and losses is like $2,000 loss. And this is just from some of the reinvesting or that they're doing, typical, monthly type investment management stuff. So in September, we had a balance of 3.949, which at that point showed us a year-to-date loss of 21%. We've gained back 3% in the last 6 weeks effectively. So we just have to continue to monitor what's happening. There's no other plans at this point to have any visiting professor come. Considering the fact that when John and I were at the NASMA meeting in San Diego, we got an email from Martha that Fred Schumann, who had accepted the dean's position, basically declined it and went back to his professorship. So he decided he didn't really want to be dean. I guess he probably talked to too many people that told him about too many problems. So I don't know. Maybe we scared him, John, at lunch.
Maybe it was us, Dave. I think that was our meeting with him was the start, maybe.
Could be. But yeah, hard to tell. But when Martha emailed, basically the fact that Fred stepped back as dean means that the SBPA has no dean. So it's kind of difficult to do anything with the program, and some of the changes that the ad hoc committee had recommended, we don't know how any of that's going to happen.
Dave,
considering, yeah.
Sorry, did you see they just announced, I guess, an acting dean for now?
Oh, no, I haven't seen that one. When was
Roseanne, that? Dr. Roseanne Jones.
When did they announce that?
Well, I just saw an email this week, maybe Wednesday or yesterday.
Well, oh, okay. Well, I guess I wasn't included on that one. Is that you got it through the advisory council?
Yeah, to the advisory council.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
they've been pretty quiet on who they're informing, because I didn't know about Fred Schumann. It was just by accident.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I haven't said anything, so I haven't had any emails from UOG. So I guess we'll see. Roseanne Jones is, I believe she's the one that Annette said she had talked to before she retired about some of the issues. So maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good thing for us. But the other thing is that I found out that Dr. Kreis, the president, has resigned his position as of the end of his contract, which ends, I think, next August. I'm not sure, late summer next year. But he had a 5-year contract, and apparently he's decided it's just time to retire.
Is he your dad's first cousin or my dad's? I just wondered. Because I saw one of his siblings, Charlie.
Enough off that he doesn't really need the job, and I guess he's dealt with enough headaches in his life. He decided it's time to retire. So there is the appointment of a presidential search committee is underway, and I think there's some of the people have been appointed, but or they're in the process of appointing some of the people. So we'll see how that works out. So everything is a little bit in flux at the university at this point. Thus, I don't really see us having any visiting professors coming on a regular semester basis like Ray did, at least for another year. So it's a little bit settled. So does anybody got any questions about that? Okay. If not, we can move on to the applications for certificates and licenses. We have 51 of them now. And we do have this one lady from Saipan who's being reinstated. She's now working for MB Tech Micronesia. She's the only local, there's no other Guam or local members, but altogether there's 51 licensees. We did add one more today. There's no any of them. Several of them are have been done and are becoming active or current, I guess you'd say. A couple of them were delinquent for a while, so they're being reinstated. So, which of course means they have to do all their CPE to catch up. So, but I don't have any issues with any of these. And
Okay,
there's a total of
no
51
issues.
of them. So, nope.
Okay, can I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Francis. Thank you, Francis.
Okay.
What's the next item on the agenda?
Okay. Next item is our credit and our NTS extensions. We had 4 requests. This was the one we noted that the dates. These 3 dates actually should be 2023. The first one here is a guy who was trying to get his documents done so he can actually go take the test. He's been having a problem with his passport. His NTS expires in December and he wants it extended for March. We don't have a problem with a 3-month extension for that. The second one is a person that tested positive for dengue fever and they canceled their FAR exam. And they're requesting the same basic 3-month extension to February 2023 as NTS expires in November this month, or expired this month. And again, for March 2023. This person had medical issues, had scheduled the exam. He had credit for BEC that expired on 31st this month or last month, and he's requesting an extension through the end of this month so he can take his, I guess this is the last, his reg, and he presumably plans to pass it. So I don't have an issue with the 1-month extension for that. And then this person had some real medical issues with her newborn baby. And spent quite a while dealing with the medical issues and with her baby. So she's asking for an extension. The credit she has for reg expires in January of next year. And she's asking for the extension only until April. This would be April 2023, which again is the 3-month extension. I don't really have much of an issue with the 3-month extension. Especially when people document the fact they actually have problems like this, which we've left most of that documentation out. Some of it's here, but we do get people who say, well, I had a problem and I need to extend until the end of 2023 because, I couldn't test for 7 months. So I want a 7-month extension. And those things we don't entertain. We typically don't entertain those at all. So no, anybody who wants more than the extension really has to have a valid reason for it, and it's in my perspective, it's very hard to come up with something like that. So these are the extensions we're going to grant for this quarter, unless anybody has any questions or issues. No, if not,
Well, looks good.
okay. Okay. We move. The next thing is the tentative dates for this. Let's see. I'm going to skip through these. This is all the basic documentation. This was the email that NASBA released, and I think they sent, I don't know if you all got copied or not, maybe, probably, but most of this we've discussed to some extent in the past few months about the CPA evolution, but I put most of this in here for the record. So, of course, what it says is if you're still working to pass the exam by January 20, and you're going to have to take the new discipline EC. So what they're saying here is that and these dates are all tentative, but they're basically saying the last day of testing for the current CPA exam sections, all 4 of them, is anticipated to be December 15th. So that's the last day you could actually sit for the current exam as it is.
15.
But they're not going to schedule anything from December 16 to January 9th. That's allowing for the IT conversions to get the new stuff up and running. If you want to take the BEC for the end of 2023 so that you don't have to take a discipline in 2024, you have to apply for your authorization and notice to schedule before November 15th. Now, this November 15th date is actually the date that the gateway is going to stop issuing authorization to test, which means from the board's perspective, if you're a candidate, you're applying to us as a Guam candidate, you need to apply ahead of this date. And that's why they're saying here they require final application deadlines for BEC sections. So I'll talk to the girls, but I'm thinking that if the gateway is going to shut off in November, then we should require them to apply for it before the end of August. So that's 2 months before. So and we'll have to announce that, and NASBA will announce that to all candidates also. The other thing is that the boards have to initial application acceptance date for the new sections, which starts in January 2024. So they're saying that authorization to test and notice to schedule for the disciplines bar, ISIC and TCP won't be processed until November 22nd. So these are dates are something that we still need to determine. So we'll have to, if they're not going to process by the gateway until November, then I don't think we want to really start accepting applications until after they start, maybe October, I guess, so that by the time the application process is complete, they'll be ready to and of actually issuing a notice to schedule. As it usually takes, I think most candidates at least a month to get everything turned in, get it evaluated, and get approved as a candidate. So, and this only applies, the new application date only applies to the disciplines because audit, FAR, and reg is the same. So there's no dates that we need to be concerned about with them other than the fact that there will be scheduling blackouts due to just bringing up the new exam. So the tentative dates for the testing and the score release for the core sections, it basically follows from the first. If you take your core test in January, audit, FAR, or reg, you're going to get your score in the middle of May. So you're talking about 4 months delay for the score release. Same thing, the disciplines, if you take it in January, you could get your score in March. It would be March to April. So essentially it's still a 3.5 to 4 month delay. And that follows all the way through. So each of these quarterly windows, I guess you could say, there are going to be some blackout times in between here, you know, like between the June and the August thing or that kind of stuff, or June and July 1st and September and October. So there's like a week at the end of each quarter. So that's going to have to be taken into account too. So bottom line, wow, this thing moves. It's anticipated that testing will commence on January 10th, 2024 for all sections of the new exam. While the first is audit FAR and reg will be available for scheduling through March 26th, the discipline sections will be available through February 6th. So there's a cutoff there between the disciplines. And the scores are only going to be released once per section per quarter. So essentially you're only going to get one score release per quarter, where now they do it every couple of weeks. So that's going to be a big change, because they're used to getting a score within a couple of weeks. Now they're going to have to wait 4 months.
Wow.
So yeah, the other thing is that due to the delayed score releases, we've recommended a policy that allow candidates to have credits extended through June 30th of 2025, which is 18 months from January 2024. So the CBT admin and the who was it? The executive directors committee both agreed that anybody who has any credit pending on January 1st, 2024, when the new exams is instituted, will have that credit automatically extended for 18 months. And that basically was just to eliminate all of the potential hassles for having to find out when they got a score and having people ask for an extension and having granted and then having to make changes in the gateway and all that kind of stuff. So we also realized that, you know, we're going to complain because their credit was, you know, good through December of 24, and they're only going to get like effectively a 6 or 7 month extension, while the other people's credit was going to expire in January 2024. So they're actually getting an 18-month extension. But the bottom line is that the only way to eliminate all the headache and extra tedious detail work that would go into trying to keep track of all the changes that might be requested is just to grant the blanket extension for all of them. So that's basically what they're doing, and I think we discussed it a little bit before, and I'm pretty well ready to sign on to that. I don't have a problem with that. Otherwise, we're just going to have a nightmare trying to keep track of all the people that want to have changes. So 39 jurisdictions have already approved this policy, so I don't see that as a major issue going forward. The other thing is the rule change, and I know we discussed this in the past about the start date of the 18-month period for passing the exam is going to change from when they sit to when the score is released. When the first score for the first section is released. And that again eliminates a lot of headaches for, you know, when does it start, when does it end, and that kind of thing, and especially with the score delays, because we had all of the issues, you know, with COVID because everything got delayed, and now you have the new exam and the score releases. Every time there's to the exam, the score releases are going to be delayed, which means that if we use the policy of score release date, then we eliminate all the need for extending you know, credits for the time that they didn't get their score, you know, that kind of thing. So that's where we're at with that, but we have to rewrite some of the rules to make that happen. So, but I don't see that as an issue. We can get that done before the end of next year. So I'm in the process of rewriting a lot of the rules now anyway. So, but that's the bottom line for the transition policy. So does anybody have any questions about that? Let me know.
Dave, we said we don't have to really do anything right now. We have some time next year.
Right. Yeah, the only thing we need to do is to actually rewrite the rules about, the date for when the 18-month period starts.
18 months, right? Okay.
But there's some other things we need to do also with, how the exam's given and all that kind of stuff, as the rules are back to 2000. So I'm in the process of basically starting to rewrite all the rules anyway. So
Yep.
I think
Are you including
we'll
the integrated learning?
yeah, we're going to take that out.
Okay.
The part about integrated course credit. So, and I'm thinking the best way to make the rule changes now is to just rewrite the entire section of rules and then have it enacted as a public law, rather than try to go through the rule change process that last time took us 18 months to change the fee, by $100. So that's the plan. We should have that sometime, probably by April or May of next year. We get started.
I heard a rumor that Senator San Augustine may not want to continue at least the oversight of the budget, but I don't, that's just a rumor.
I don't
So
know.
I don't know if he's going to continue to oversee or
Right.
have oversight.
Yeah, well, they have some new players, so I'm sure they'll have to rework their caucus and decide who's going to be oversight of what. So, but I don't anticipate any major issues with getting it done. So, other than maybe getting it through the AG's office. If Mr. Mullen is our new AG. Does anybody know if they finished counting their absentee ballots?
I don't know, but there's only 77 difference. So
I
Yeah,
think
there
the
were.
count, I think the count has to be public, and the candidates
Okay.
will either be present or have a representative present. So it'll be public when they decide to do it.
Okay, so I heard that there's 200 some absentee ballots. So I guess we'll see. It's anybody's guess at this. So okay. Well, if there's no other questions about that, we can move on. Candidate care quarterly report. You can tell that there's not a lot of exam volume, given the fact that the total complaints in the candidate care report are now equivalent to what that used to be just for candidate error. So, so a lot less going on. So, but major issues that we haven't seen before. But I think it's important to note that the candidate error is mostly failing to bring the NTS to the center, using an incorrect NTS, or having issues with the name not matching the identification. The only other thing is hitting the submit button prematurely and timing out on the introductory screen, which has always been a problem. So those are pure candidate error problems. Otherwise, it's the usual: exam won't launch, tools don't work, exam shut down, can't restart, that kind of thing. And during the quarter was just basically weather issues with the 3 hurricanes that went through the states. So, but typically they keep saying that these technical software hardware issues are going to go away with the new exam because it has a new driver built to presented online on a streaming basis. So that's supposed to make a difference. We won't know until it happens, but that's what they say. So that's the candidate care report for the quarter. And then the next thing is the NASBA gave education research grants to 2 teams. One is studying the importance of metacognition in today's business curriculum and the impact of core business courses and online adaptive learning technology on students is metacognition. I'm not sure exactly what metacognition is. Maybe it has something to do with Facebook, recognizing that you don't want to be on Facebook. I don't know. But a team views metacognition to be an educational outcome that should be measured and developed to meet of employers. So I guess we'll find out what it is when they release their report. It says they'll identify courses and aid in the development of certain aspects of metacognition. So business school graduates will have an expectation of those skills to help them not only succeed and earn advancement, provide them with capability to successfully pivot into a new role. Your guess is as good as mine. If anybody has any questions, email these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it. I think the second one is a little bit more apropos. Success on the CPA exam furthered by an institutional culture supportive of such effort at institutions of higher education, i.e., let's study a single contributing factor to the culture is the professional certification of college instructors. This one I think is a little more close to home with us because we have only one instructor that's actually a CPA,
Yeah.
and we have one that's not. So I think there's always some contention between the two in terms of CPA versus not. So it'll be interesting to see the results of this study. I'm interested to see what the results of the metacognition study is, but I'm only hoping to be able to understand it when they release it. Otherwise, we have to hire a psychometrician. And okay, the next thing we have is the proposed changes to the UAA model rules. Okay, so this is an exposure draft on the Uniform Accountancy Act model rules for granting of credit requirement for sections passed on the exam. And basically this kind of covers, it's a 60-day comment period. It covers the changes for granting credit for sections passed. In other words, once you successfully pass one section, all jurisdictions provide a rolling 18-month. The date from which it's calculated is varies. So it's really talking about the score changing to the score release date here. So Rule 5.7 retake and granting is deleted and rewritten. So it'll be from the date the passing score was released. The rolling 18-month begins on the date the first passing score is released. The only other thing that's interesting about this, and it will conclude with the sit date of the final test section pass. So doesn't matter when the score is released. So in other words, your rolling 18-month period to pass the exam starts when you get your first score, i.e. when that score is released, and that knows that date because the gateway records the date of the score release. So that's already in the system for NASBA to keep track of. And the end of the 18-month period is not the last score release, but it's the day you sit for the last exam. So say you've passed parts of the exam and your credit is your 18-month period is expected to expire on, say, maybe December 14th of next month, 2022. As long as you sit for that last part of the exam on or before December 14th, then you're good to go, even though your score might come in January or February. So they're using the score release date to start and the sit date for the final section as the end of that period. So or you have to sit by the end of the 18 months from the score release date. So does anybody have any questions about that? I know there's going to be a lot of candidates that are going to question that, but that's basically the way it'll work, and that's I'm pretty much rewriting our rules to follow this. The other thing is that they prohibit a candidate from taking a failed test section until you've been notified of the score for the most recent attempt. So, I mean, right now, of course, as a candidate, you can take an exam, fail it, and take it again, no problem, in the same window. What they're saying here is that they're going to prevent you from taking that section until you get the score for the one you just took. So you can't take it and then take it again before you get your score. I think part of that has to do with some security issue, and part of it has to just do with the fact that on the new exam there's going to be score delays, and they don't want people trying to think, well, I failed it, I took it, I failed it, I'll go ahead and take it again, and then because the scores won't actually be that accurate until they have the time to study the volume of responses they get. So the other thing is, if you do it in another state, you get the same credit. And the board can still, and I don't know why they write this in the rule, but the board can still extend the credit if it's due to credit being lost by reason or circumstances beyond the candidate's control. So, as you may or may not remember, the UAA is a joint effort between NASBA and the AICPA. However, the UAA rules are strictly a NASBA responsibility. So AICPA, of course, has input, but they don't have any say over the final release of the UAA rules. So, but NASBA's put this out here, and all of this is based on collaboration with the AICPA. So there's no issues in that regard. And this is just for the record, I put the whole thing in here. So, you can always go back and look for it. Anybody have any questions on the rules change?
When are you targeting completion, Dave, or at least a draft?
Probably sometime between next April and May. I have to rewrite the part that I'm concerned more about than anything is rewriting the rules that apply to the way we handled the public hearing and the candidates that cheat and things like that, all that rigmarole we went through. Rob from the AG's office advised me that there's some things that we should definitely just totally revamp in that regard. So I'm kind of working with him, but on his schedule a little bit. So, and now I'm not sure what his schedule is going to be if we have a new AG that's going to change,
right.
take a couple months to figure that out. So I'm just kind of looking at probably sometime between April and probably April to June next year.
Okay.
Okay. But, this is relative to the Hong Kong MRA. On December 31st, the MRA with Hong Kong expires and will not be renewed. So we've had one or two candidates in the last couple of years that asked us, can they become a Guam CPA through the Hong Kong MRA? And we, of course, said no, because we don't participate in that MRA. So they went away. But NASBA set these deadlines for any Hong Kong Institute of CPA members that are planning to use the MRA to become a licensed US CPA. So it's just here for the record, but I thought it was interesting to note that they're not renewing it.
Dave, did they provide a reason why they're deciding not to renew?
Nothing but hearsay, as far as I know.
Okay.
But I have a feeling it has to do with some of the, the political changes in Hong Kong relative to mainland China being responsible for everything. The things that weren't so when the MRA was actually put in place. Those changes took place since the original MRA. So decided that it's not something they want to. I couldn't find any black and white explanation for it. Okay. Last one is the financial summary. We finished the year a couple 100,000 to the good. Of course, we have 1,025,000 loss, but if you eliminate the 1,250,000 we contributed, then basically we're at 225,000 excess revenues, which is not a bad thing. So then we could still basically contribute to and fund a visiting professor program on a more or less annual or semi-annual basis. So that leaves us with the 784 in the bank, and we still have the one TCD with Bank of Hawaii, and it matures next April of 23. And when it does, we'll contribute it to the endowment fund. The thought was that we should put the money in the endowment fund because it earns much more than we're earning in the bank. But given all the economic events that have happened, maybe that was not such a wise decision to make. But I think in the end, it's going to play out to our advantage over the long term. As we all know, the market winds up going back to where it was and then getting ahead again after every dip, as long as we don't have to liquidate. We don't have any real losses, just have to wait. So that's where we are right now, from the end of fiscal 2022. And of course, the one thing to note here is that you can see a little bit of the fact that the applicants for 2022 are still a little bit ahead of 2021 here. Green is 21, brown's 22. Same thing with the sections. The sections were running a little ahead, then they got a little behind. Now they're back to normal, but and you can see with what our revenues have done, are getting pretty even now. What I noticed in the detail for the last couple of quarters is even though our total applications have been still on the rise relative to last year, compared to the nation as a whole, which has been on a decline for about 2 years, 3 years, is that our first-time applicants have begun to decline, and our re-exam applicants have increased by 30 to 40%. So I think part of that is just relative to the economics and, the educational decline in general, the less people in college. But I think part of that's also due to the anticipation of the old exam, get done with the old exam versus wait for the new exams. So some of the people who haven't applied at all yet are probably waiting to see how things are going to shake out, while the ones that are in progress are like, I want to finish before the new one hits. So they're going to, they're kind of up in their ante. We saw that in 2010 and 11, where we peaked at 12 to 13, 14,000 sections a year, because the people wanted to pass the exam before the new exam took effect in 2011. So I think some of that's going to come into play, which my contention is that over the next year we'll probably hold steady. I don't think we'll see a major decline, but we may see some increase, but I can't honestly say how much, because of the new exam and the fact that COVID waylaid a lot of our candidates in the pipeline. So but we're still, our applications are still holding up. So for the first month of the new fiscal year, and this again is estimated because I still don't have the actual numbers for the application fees or the test center admin fees, the way I estimate this is to take a 6-month rolling average and then look at how that compares with the last couple of months, and basically come up with a conservative estimate. So these are the top two numbers of the estimate, the 12 and the 7. But on the whole, we did 34,000 for the month, give or take, and against our expenses. So we still wound up with a $3,000 excess revenues. So not a bad deal. And I at this point have a hard time projecting, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to exceed our 537,000. What I've seen, and this I didn't anticipate, is with the certification fees and the individual licensing fees. Certification fees are holding steady, but the growth rate has declined a little bit. But the individual licensing fees, which is essentially all the renewals, has just continued to increase. And I had thought that COVID would probably put a damper on this, but we were up 32,000 to 33,000, 20 to 21, and we're still up 20,000 from 20 to 22, 21 to 22. So we're still seeing an increase in renewals. It looks like we're going to be, I could say just as well off in 23 as we were in 22. It's hard to say, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be at least on a break even, if not better basis. Our 23 approved budget, the revenue numbers I'm using are the revenue numbers approved by the board. The expense numbers that I have here is, again, the legislative appropriation that we received, which is based on the 2019 budget that we submitted. Hasn't been changed since then. So every year they just appropriate the same allotment that they appropriated in 2019 from our budget, even though every year we submit our budget with new expense numbers also. They tend to ignore it. They don't enact anything relative to our revenue because we're a special fund, and then they only enact our expense so that would leave us with 252 deficit, except for the 300,000 contribution, which means we'd have like a 47 or $48,000 excess revenues. And I'm reasonably certain that we will at least reach the 40 to 50,000 excess revenues, and should be more if things, continue as is, barring any real unforeseen events that could affect it. Anyway, that's where we're. Anybody any questions on the finances?
No, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, I typically use these numbers and project out for the, extrapolate it out for the year, and everything looks okay, of course, always, except for the individual licensing fees, which of course you can't really extrapolate because the bulk of it, 80% of it happens between May and July. So, but yeah, I don't really see an issue with where we're going this year. I'm pretty certain we'll have excess revenues. Just can't say exactly or how much, Okay. But that's basically all I have. The meetings we attended, I attended the AICPA council meeting in Chicago, and then I and Talling attended the NASBA annual meeting in San Diego. And they covered mostly the issues about CPA evolution and curriculum and things. Our breakout sessions were interesting. We had discussions about curriculum and things, but most of what was covered in the meetings, even in the AICPA, the council meeting, was covered in the NASBA meeting. Most of it's relative to the new exam. some of it's relative to the NOCLAR, or whatever you want to call it, issues with compliance, and some of it relative to peer review, but nothing new in that regard. I don't know if, John, you have anything you can recall about the meeting.
Well,
in
you
the
know, the
president's
150
breakfast,
hours
maybe.
was a topic again
Yeah,
about that it's causing a barrier to some, I mean, or it's affecting the pipeline of accounting students. I mean, it sounded like because of the 150 hours, there are fewer students majoring or pursuing accounting because they can't afford the extra year to reach the 150 hours. So they're looking at ways to address that.
right.
And it still sounded like not too many states have identified exactly what type of courses should be taken, right, to reach the 150.
Yeah, at this point, I'm not aware of any jurisdiction that's actually said the extra 30 hours or so has to be made up of A, B, or C. Everybody's just left it as, the 150, and you have to get whatever your deficiency is. I gave a presentation to the Junior Accounting Society last week. Is it last week or this? I think it was last week. At UOG, and that's one of they were asking about the new exam and transition, those kind of things. That's one of the things they ask about, and I made it clear to them that at this point we require the 150, but have no specificity as to what the extra hours need to be. So the people that are interested should look at taking whatever they need to get there.
So Dave, I had some people ask me then, should they take the MAC program? Is it worth it?
Yeah.
I mean, or should they just try and find their 150 hours, I guess, some other way?
I think, I talked to Martha. Martha was there at the JAS presentation, and I asked her about the MAC program, and she said they had 25 or 26 people signed up. And she told me that I asked her what the actual cost is for the whole program, and she said I think it's $10,000 tuition, which is pretty much equivalent to what most of the schools at the UOG level are charging. Of course, there different schools charge a lot more money, but basically, I think 10,000 is probably about the norm for it's like a 32 or a 30-hour program, something like that. You can do it in a year. It's all online. I think that the advantage for people that should take it are people who, have not taken the exam, especially if you've already been out of school. And you haven't taken the exam, then take the MAC program, because it's supposed to integrate the review courses. So if you're planning on taking the exam and you need the extra hours, I would just take the thing. I mean, when you consider that a review course today, if you want to take a live review course, it's going to cost you $3,000 to $5,000 for the course, never mind the travel or whatever you have to go through to get there. So that's that much different in terms of total cost, and you have an opportunity to complete the review course while you're doing it, and then take the exam along the way. So if you've already got been through a review course or whatever, you're in the middle of a review course, I'm not sure it's that advantageous. There could be cheaper ways to get the extra hours at this point,
but I think that makes sense. So if you're a student right now and you need 150 hours, well, you're going to need another year. So just plan to go into the MAC after your 4-year degree, and it'll incorporate the reviews. So you'll be in good shape to take the exam, I guess, immediately after. Okay.
Yeah, well, the way I did explain again the total pre-education completion path that we have. So anybody taking the MAC program, taking the review courses, can take the exam right along with it. So they complete one, take the exam. I mean, that would be the best time to take it. So And of course, the MAC program is a 1-year program, so they should be complete by the time they pass the exam within the year.
Right.
That'd be fine. I did have a discussion with Justine, the lady who runs the FACS evaluations, and she was telling me that the education programs in Taiwan, and we have a lot of Taiwan candidates, and their education programs are much more rigorous than the US degree program. So typically by the time these Taiwanese candidates actually complete their course of study in Taiwan, they already have the 150 hours. So they're actually qualified for licensure once they complete their course of study. Their universities or whatever, I guess their curriculums require a lot of extra hours relative to when you compare them to the US curriculum. So. Okay.
Okay.
I don't
Good.
have anything else at this point.
Nothing else on the
unless any-
agenda?
No, unless anybody has questions.
Okay, so looks like no questions. We'll go ahead and, okay, if there's no other questions or items to discuss, can I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Okay.
Can I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Francis. So meeting adjourned.
Happy
Meeting's adjourned.
Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's right. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Thanksgiving this week, and then we have our next meeting, I think, in December. Let me check here real quick.
December 22nd or 15th?
Scheduled for December 15th. So the 15th is the third. It's scheduled for the 15th. Not if it has any issues with that, we'll continue with our December meeting. So
Yeah, we'll play. I'm not sure if I'll be off island, but